Hello, and we are here today with Jordan Gaitlin, and she's a friend that I've gotten to know in the past couple months that has a really strong story about her son and his journey through a health issue. And I'm so honored to have her here and be able to share with you guys the story that she has overcome for the last 7 years. So, Jordan, welcome.
Hi,
And
thank
can you
you.
share a little bit about your child's journey and what he had and how it affected your whole family?
Sure. When Luke was about 2 months old, he began presenting with eczema, and within a month, he was covered pretty much head to toe, except for the diaper area. And I came from the medical field, but something within me told me not to use steroids. So I set out on this journey to find solutions for him that just felt right in my mama's heart. And so, yeah, we found detoxification and herbs and all the things, which gave him some relief. He went through several healing crises throughout the years, but we were making progress.
And then, yeah, so he had this severe eczema. I mean, excruciating,
Yes.
painful to even look at. And I can't even imagine being so young and having to deal with that, just the itchiness and the irritation, um, what that all was doing to his body. You mentioned that you were searching high and low for everything, and nothing really seemed to heal it
Yeah.
completely. And tell us a little bit about how that affected you and your husband and just your whole family life. Because it not just affected your son, but how did it affect your whole family?
Yeah. It was devastating, to be honest with you. We didn't have any experience with eczema. And so we really didn't know, he would cry, like we would buy creams. And one day he was fine with it. The next day he was screaming bloody murder and it was the same cream. So we bought a new one and, all the things. We spent so much money on, trying to navigate that for him. And as far as like how it affected our family, my older two boys, while I was still present, I wasn't able to tend to them the way that they were used to having mom around. I know that affected them emotionally and probably even psychologically. Um, Thank God I had a supportive husband that was there to, tend to them and give them the love and attention that they needed. Unfortunately, Luke just took to me. He was constantly breastfeeding. And if he wasn't breastfeeding, then he was itching. And so he just really he needed me around the clock. So as far as my husband goes, he managed it very well. I know it was hard to see our son struggling and suffering, but he was my rock and just, kept me positive, on my down days. And I'm very fortunate to have had him through that.
Yeah. So was there a point where you're just like, I'm done? Like, I'm too overwhelmed. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm just done. And what made you keep going?
Yeah, there were lots of those days. Healing isn't linear, and Luke's definitely wasn't. So when we go through the healing cycle naturally, we're going to experience what we look at as setbacks, but they're really healing crisis. The body's trying to push more waste and toxins out, and his detox pathways weren't open and able to handle that capacity. Uh, and in that time, even though it's a good thing, it's really hard to, like, look at it as a good thing. It doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, your son is suffering, and, um, so, yeah, those those flares or those healing crises that he would experience definitely would like make you wonder, am I on the right path? We're not used to this type of approach, or like at least the way I was brought up. And most people look at it as like they want immediate fixes, and like that immediate gratification of, okay, it's gone. We can forget about it now. And that's not always the case with natural healing. So I'm glad I stuck through with it. I'm glad I kept at it because, he was so young that like he didn't know what foods he was missing out on, or, like he had no idea. So doing that while he was young and being able to have, I guess, the control over what foods he's consuming without any backlash or arguing or anything like that as he would get older. It spared him from that experience of going through it when he's older, and I really think it ended up giving him a better start to life and setting him up for that.
So, through this whole journey, he's now 7, correct?
Yes.
So, where is his eczema at?
Well, so through the years, like I said, we would go through healing crisis and we saw some healing, but it wasn't any lasting results like some people experience. They just make small tweaks and it's gone. And that wasn't the case for Luke. So even though we had checked all the boxes with all the things the practitioners that we worked with said, we made progress. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, he had gotten basically 90% covered. And the last 4 years now, it was just on his feet. And we were in this cycle. I wouldn't even call it like an eczema flare. It was just a cycle of his skin would look like thick and like dry or elephant like. And then like the itching never left. So he would itch pretty much every day still. But some days for whatever reason, it would rescab. And he would open them up, make tons of wounds. His feet would scab. And then a couple months later, we'd have him in a good spot, and then it would happen again. So it was like just this reoccurring cycle of rescabbing. So yeah, so I wouldn't even really have, I don't know, I guess you would call it eczema because most skin conditions are, labeled eczema.
And so his feet, how are they today?
His feet are great. So sometimes it does look a little dry, but we have gone 7 months now, I believe, without scabbing. So that's huge. That's the longest he's gone ever. And his itchiness is gone. He's able to tolerate the heat, which whereas before up until last December, actually, yeah, somewhere in there, just walking from the house to the car, he would get itchy. And the heat he couldn't tolerate it. And at this point, we're able to enjoy being outside as a family, going to the beach, to the water park. Yeah, it's great.
So what do you attribute that turning point to be? What happened within the last 7 to 9 months that was like, "Oh my gosh, he's not scabbing anymore and his feet look amazing. They're just a little dry, but oh my gosh, it's totally a turnaround from where he was." What was that turning point?
So, one of my dear friends introduced me to a company. At first, I was reluctant because with all that I had learned through the years, fresh is best. But she introduced me to this company that sources from regenerative farms. And what caught my attention was that their regenerative farms pay attention to the quality of the soil and the quality of the seed. And even if you're eating organic, which is what we were eating and what he's eaten his whole life, it's not grown in quality soil. The soil is very depleted. And so our foods can only be as nourished as the soil that it's grown in, and we can only be as nourished as the foods that we eat. So that caught my attention. And then there's a product that they also produce, which is called Biomedic, and that addresses the glyphosate issue. We live across the street from a golf course, and our neighbors spray the yard. In fact, I saw one out spraying the other day, and they spray the medians and the parks and all the things. So even though we're eating organic, we were still being exposed to glyphosate. And I know how detrimental that is, and even more so, like after starting to use the product, diving in even deeper as to how detrimental it is. I'm so relieved that we have that solution. And I believe you have his before and after photos. So it's not just his feet that have,
Yeah, that they just his skin has been rejuvenated.
yes, been restored for sure. But the inflammation in his face has gone down. And that was quite shocking.
Like he looking at this picture, she's like, "Whoa, look at my face! Look how inflamed it is!"
Yeah.
Like he could see it too.
Yeah. Someone even pointed out his smile. So that before photo was around Christmas. A kid would typically be super excited. And his smile looks forced. Somebody pointed that out to me. It doesn't look real, but his smile and his after photo is so genuine. Yeah.
Like a totally different kid.
Mm.
So, what do you say to the moms out there that are like in the thick of this and they're with not knowing what to do, getting all these different runarounds from everybody else? What would you say to them?
God gave us an intuition and an instinct, and I highly suggest listening to that. It took me quite a while to listen to that because you have friends and family questioning the path that you're taking, if it's really working, and what if he's just going to have it for the rest of his life. And none of that set well with me. I know God created us in an extremely intelligent way that we might not ever fully understand, but I also know that he gave us all the answers. He didn't send us here to suffer, especially children these days, like seeing all the health issues that they have. We weren't sent here to suffer. I believe that he gave us the solutions, and I knew I was going to find it. And I think the one thing that he was missing primarily was the nutrients and the minerals from the foods. So,
Okay. So looking back now, what's one thing that you wish you could tell yourself at the beginning of this journey 7 years ago?
well, if I could go back 8 years ago, I would tell myself to take time to prepare my body. I had 2 prior pregnancies, and with every pregnancy, our body's always giving the best start to life to the baby. So even if we aren't taking in enough minerals and nutrients to give the baby, it's going to steal it from our bodies. I was extremely depleted, so I would have told myself to be sure to nourish myself for a period of time and detox prior. Maybe he would have had a better start to life. If I went back 7 years, I would tell myself to have faith in God, and to just, pray and restore our faith in our bodies and the creation that He designed, and to return to nature as much as possible. So, yeah, and find community of people who have been through that journey so that they can lift you up in those weak moments.
Yes. Beautiful, Jordan. So amazing to hear your story, your son's story, and just to see his vibrance now is just pretty amazing. And I'm just so glad that we were able to connect and have this community space that we do have, and just continued blessings on your family and yourself.
Thank you. You as well.